All right, everybody, welcome to the April 11th, 2022 meeting of the New York State Appearance Enhancement Advisory Committee. I am Michelle Diallard-Brenner and the chair of the advisory committee. The time is now 10:32 and I'm going to start the meeting by taking attendance. Shirley Cheng. I believe Shirley has been excused and won't be attending the meeting. Anthony Fiore.
Here.
Aaron Hunley.
Here.
Leanne Shade. Here. Excellent, thank you. We also, based on the number of members present, we do not have enough for a quorum this morning. Therefore, we're going to have to table both the 9/13/21 and 10/25 meeting summary approvals until our next meeting. And hopefully at that time, we will have enough for a quorum and get all meetings, all approvals set and ready to go. So I'm just going to move forward on our agenda. And the first item that I have is marked number 2 for those of you that have your agenda in front of you. And this is department and subcommittee reports. I'd love to start with letter A first, which is the enforcement update from John Goldman. John, are you available?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everybody. Although the last meeting minutes aren't finalized, I did want to just kind of reference them and the numbers that my colleague Ernest Delaney reported on, which was that at that point, October of 21, the state had issued 401 notices of violation tickets following inspections, 184 of which included ventilation violations, the inability for the shop owner to produce the ventilation certificate, which is about a 45% ratio. I also just wanted to point out that that program began on July 1 for the year of 2021. Between January through the end of June, we had a moratorium on inspections as a result of the COVID situation, and the administration decided to, on the side of caution, not to have us in the field interacting with the industry. And so those numbers really represent July through October. Following the October meeting, we did another round of inspections that were much more focused on nail salons. The first group representing that 401 number was a mix of both nail salons and non-nail salons, we'll call them. As you know, we don't really distinguish between the two relevant to the license type or the inspection program. It's just that the nail salons have a set of requirements that don't apply to non-nail salons. So in the latter part of the year, between October and about mid-December, when we had another moratorium on inspections as a result of an uptick in the COVID situation, as I said, we did another 323 inspections statewide. And because there was a much more focus, our field personnel, our investigators were instructed to focus more specifically on nail salons. We had a larger percentage of vent violations, 246. So we went from about a 45% for the first group between July and October to about a 76% failure rate in terms of their ability to produce the vent cert. And again, that what amounts to almost a doubling in the ratio is because there was a much more harder focus on the nail salons as opposed to the non-nail salons. But so that for the year, the 2021 year, that brings it to 724 inspections, of which 430 were issued no vent cert violations, which percentage-wise equals about a 59% failure rate. As I said or mentioned, we again, about mid-December, before the full year came to an end, called for another moratorium because of an uptick in COVID situations. I was also asked to kind of explain real quick how we handled disposition of those tickets during 21, and that was through a process that we define as an OTC process. Opportunity to cure is what OTC stands for, which is basically rather than there being some sort of monetary penalty against the shop owner for the violation, they're given an opportunity to cure the violation through an email communication system we devised, and that worked very, very well. we are still working on processing those, although we're past the first quarter of 22. But we are coming to the end of that process of assessing the materials sent by the shops that were issued the tickets and determining whether or not they in fact did comply. Those tickets that were written relevant to the inability to produce the vent cert were handled in a special manner. We had a group of paralegals that work on our legal team communicate with the shop, and in some instances give them an opportunity, if at that point they were not grandfathered, meaning their shop license was issued prior to October 16, or excuse me, after October 16, meaning that when they opened, by regulation, they should have had the vent such a system installed already. They were given an opportunity to sign what really amounts to a consent agreement in which they agreed to have the system installed, and we gave them a generous period of time to get that system installed, because in lots of instances it's not easy, it's technically challenging, and it's very often not cheap. And so we worked with the industry and those folks who were non-compliant to come into compliance. And that continues to this day as we work through the remainder of the tickets issued in 2021. As far as the 22 enforcement program, we've focused on a backlog of complaints that developed as a result of the moratorium on inspections. So we have roughly 400 complaints that are backlogged, where folks, specifically a consumer, somebody comes to us and alleges a specific incident, an issue that they want us to address, as opposed to what we refer to as cold inspections. So the administration has decided for the remainder of the 22 calendar year, we're going to focus on completion of those investigations and whatever dispositions are deemed warranted. The other thing I was told to mention is that one of the things we were concerned about right from the onset of the whole vent certification process was the validity of those certifications as presented to us in the field. Our enforcement folks are not HVAC professionals. We don't have the ability to look at a ventilation system and determine whether or not it meets code, et cetera. We rely on the certificate that the state produces, that the shops have filled out by the installer, by an engineer, by an HVAC professional. But we were concerned about us being played, for lack of a better term. In other words, having shops fill these out in a fictional manner, make up an HVAC company, have it signed, and so forth and so on. Just human nature that some folks try to get over on things as opposed to doing what they're required to do. So we've developed a spot check program where we are looking at a certain number of them to verify their validity, which would include contacting the installer, internet research to see whether or not the company, for example, even exists, and in certain instances, literally sharing that certificate with the installer, with the professional, that doesn't necessarily have to be a licensed professional, but with the professional who installed the system. In some cases, it is a licensed professional, an architect, an engineer, and confirming that they, in fact, did prepare the certificate and that it was legitimate. And so that is something we are concerned about, and we have developed, for lack of a better term, a spot check system to try to ensure that they are. And I am happy to report that that process has yet to reveal any phony, fictionalized, bogus certificates. I'm a pessimist. I can't help myself. That's just my nature. I don't believe that that is accurate. I'm sure we have been played or will be played going forward at some point, and we will detect one or another. We just haven't found it yet in the pile, so to speak. So I was just asked to speak a little bit about that we are realists, and we understand that there is the possibility that there will be some attempts to pull the wool over our eyes during the inspection process. But we've worked out this spot check system to detect that, hopefully at some point. Some will slip through the cracks, of course, but at some point I'm confident we'll detect one or another and take appropriate action. So that's the extent of my report for this meeting.
That's great. John, thank you. I actually do have a question from you. You said something that just caught my attention. And just to clarify, the expectations for a nail salon versus any other appearance enhancement business that is still offering nail services, the ventilation requirements are the same, correct?
Well, correct. We would define it as a nail salon simply by them offering the service. But of course, there are shops out there that do not offer nail services, and we don't know it before we walk in the door and look at the price list or interview the proprietor.
Yeah.
So, most nail salons that most people would identify as nail salons, literally the word nail is in the name of the shop, and you know it before you walk in the door. But there are shops out there who offer perhaps an area renter in the corner, in the back, or even as a primary service alongside hair and skin services, but from the outside you can't detect it. The name does not reveal it. And so when we're in there, even though our focus for 21 was nail salons, we recognize that there are businesses out there that from the outside you can't detect our nail salons. And so therefore, we really didn't make any effort. We still went in and out of shops and inspected shops that from the outside you potentially could not identify as a quote-unquote nail shop.
Sure.
And so as I mentioned, the latter part of the first half of the year, the second half of the year, October through December, we really instructed our enforcement staff to focus on shops that clearly were nail shops because, of course, the gorilla in the room, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is the vent situation, and we wanted to focus on that. As we anticipated, October initially was coming up. Then we had the spring, which now, again, of course, the requirement has been extended once again to October of 22. But latter last year, we weren't aware of that extension coming, and we wanted to try to get the word out as best we could. And so that's why that explains the distinction between the 45% failure rate between July and October, and almost the doubling between October and the end of the year.
Okay,
Michelle, I have a question.
certainly.
Does the state have anything implemented or in place that there's a limit on how many times one of these salons fail, that there's eventually something more than just a fine in place that if they continue this onward and forward? I know when this law was put into place, there are certain salons or businesses that it's physically impossible to actually get a ventilation system into the building they currently exist in. So I'm just wondering if the state has anything enforcement wise that is in place where there's a limit.
A limit to the number of times we conduct an inspection?
No, limit to the number of times you are fined, and eventually you can shut them down or tell them they can no longer offer these services.
Well, our legal folks look at the disciplinary history of any business that we regulate and pursuing disciplinary action against. And so if they see that this is a repeat problem, 2, 3, their disposition, obviously, the potential for the disposition to result in something other than a fine is more likely. But, there's not a policy per se that I'm aware of. I think every case is looked at on its face. And I agree with you. I believe there are circumstances where the physical layout of the shop does not allow it to adhere to the code that would be an exterior vent, source capture. And I don't really know what our plans are, what we're doing in those circumstances when again, I'm going to say physical layout. You can think of like a shop within a mall where it's just simply not feasible to vent it to the exterior of the building or something like that. I don't know what our attitude is, what our plan is, how we are handling those particular circumstances. I think they're the exception to the rule, but I agree with you, they're out there.
And I'll add to any case that results in a hearing, those decisions are made by an administrative law judge, and they'd be out of programs or in legal's hand, just to let you know that those decisions are made separately once our investigation is completed.
All right, thank you guys. Anybody else have any questions for John? John, thank you very much. Next on our agenda under reports is the processing report with Emily Lupe. Emily?
Hello. Included in the materials you were provided, you will find licensing statistics for March of 2021 and March of 2022. These reports show the number of appearance enhancement licenses broken down by license type. Please note that the 2021 numbers include only licensees and do not include those licensees whose licenses may have expired but were covered at that time by Executive Order 202.11, which allowed individuals licensed by the Department of State to extend the expiration date of their license during the state of emergency. And that concludes the processing report.
Any questions for Emily? Anyone? Emily, thank you so much. Lastly, under
Question.
go ahead.
Hi,
Yep.
sorry, it's Aaron. I just wanted to know, is it possible to have a like, I don't know, is there any data anywhere to find out how many licenses have been issued over the last 20 years?
I'm sorry, I missed
Yeah,
the
like
last.
statistics, like how there was the statistic there, it showed, 25 people and then 2,000 people. Like, is there anything that shows over the years how many licenses have been distributed?
I think we can only report back to 2014. Our
Oh,
statistic,
okay.
our statistics, we can report back to 2014 when we implemented a new online database.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah, because it went online, right? Is it
Mhm.
possible? Do you know where those statistics can be found, or is
They're not
that something that
published.
has to
We
be pulled
could
up?
we could request reports run and provided at the next board meeting.
Okay, that would be great because I'm just
Okay.
interested to see. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And what specifically, businesses, operators, all of the above?
Yeah, all of the above, the whole list that you have there. I thought that was interesting
Okay.
to see how many, licenses are and aren't being distributed.
What we can tell you is a snapshot of the number of licensees. We can't tell you like this is how many we issued, like new licenses, but we can tell you this is how many licensees we had at any one given time.
Yeah,
So
yes.
I would say like we'll give you the report for the end of the year, December of 2015 and forward.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Jody. Okay. Any other questions for Emily? No. Okay. Next is on our reports is the examination administration report by Shannon Mcguire. Shannon?
Good morning. The following exam statistics will cover the period of 2021. For cosmetology, the written exam was administered to 4,186 applicants with a pass rate of 72%. The cosmetology practical exam was administered to 2,896 applicants with a pass rate of 82%. Moving on to aesthetics, the written exam was administered to 3,115 applicants with a pass rate of 69%. The practical exam was administered to 2,537 applicants with a pass rate of 97%. For nail specialty, the written exam was administered to 2,236 applicants with a pass rate of 88%. And the practical exam was administered to 2,546 applicants with a pass rate of 89%. For natural hair, the written exam was administered to 44 applicants with a pass rate of 59%. And the practical exam was administered to 32 applicants with a pass rate of 84%. For waxing, the written exam was administered to 1,034 applicants with a pass rate of 65%. Additionally, we have statistics for the first quarter of 2022. For cosmetology, the written exam was administered to 1,057 applicants with a pass rate of 66%. And the practical exam was administered to 675 applicants with a pass rate of 87%. For the aesthetics written exam, it was administered to 1,093 applicants with a pass rate of 68%. The practical exam was administered to 671 applicants with a pass rate of 97%. For nail specialty, the written exam has been administered to 580 applicants with a pass rate of 86%. And the practical exam is 542 applicants with a pass rate of 93%. For natural hair, the written exam has been administered to 13 applicants with a pass rate of 38%. And the practical exam has been administered to 14 applicants with a pass rate of 93%. Lastly, the written Waxing exam was administered to 306 applicants with a pass rate of 65%. Thank you.
Thank you. Shannon, I've got a question for you. Has there been any conversation or anything that you see in the future of going back to working on live models as opposed to the mannequin heads for the practical exams for aesthetics?
We haven't had those discussions yet. Whether or not that will happen down the road, I can't say. But as of now, we're still working on mannequins for all exams.
Anybody have any questions for Shannon? No? Okay, Shannon, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, yep, absolutely. Next on our agenda, we have one item under action items, which is actually public access to the list of procedural services. And I'm going to go ahead and take that topic. We had a subcommittee put together a couple of years ago. We actually began this process. And our agenda was to look at all of the services that we are coming across in the appearance enhancement field: cosmetology, aesthetics, nails, waxing. But all of the things that are out there that are becoming a scope of practice issue and point of conversation on what can I do and what can I not do with my license. So at that time, the subcommittee put together an extensive list of topics that we are running into on a regular basis, and then categorize them based on licensure: what fell under aesthetics, what fell under cos, what fell under both, what fell under nails, and then what fell under a medical procedure, and then something that was uncategorized because it wasn't regulated by anyone. We really, and that list keeps growing as we get more and more questions, but the issue at hand now, and what I'm bringing to all of you is, what do we do with this list now that we have it? Is there a way to get public access to this? And I say this for a couple of reasons. First of all, our priority is consumer safety and protection. And what we are seeing, and I know that all of the advisory board members can second this, is what we are seeing is that our licensees are unsure of what they can and can't be doing, and they don't know where to turn to find out what literally is their scope of practice. That being said, there are licensees that are out there that are putting our consumers at risk because they are performing things that are not their scope of practice. However, they're being told by product manufacturers, distributors, sales reps, whatever it may be, that, this is absolutely okay to be doing. And examples are everything from microblading and microdermabrasion and chemical peels to lash tinting and lash perming, microneedling. It's just this whole category has blown up. And I can tell you that that the inquiries that come to my desk are constant, and the frustration that's out there is I'm not even really sure what to say. I know what scope of practice is, but what both consumers and licensees are looking for is, where do I go to see that that is indeed a fact? So I wanted to throw out some ideas and look for some suggestions on, what do we now do with this list, and how can we get support and backing from the Department of Licensing to help our licensees and our consumers know what is okay for them to be doing and what isn't. What's interesting is the licensees are looking for it even more than the consumers are. The consumers are sort of going by the wayside and trusting their esthetician or cosmetologist. But what I thought was, sort of an outreach type of a program, consumer-wise, looking at, can we collaborate with the Consumer Protection Office for public outreach to get this pamphlet or this list somehow in their hands and out to them. But really, more importantly, to our licensees, to give them guidance as to what they can be doing to protect themselves and to protect our consumers. We did a great pamphlet a while ago on a variety of things, and we could get this out as a pamphlet either to all the schools, I can tell you as school owners, we would jump on it. I know business owners would love to have access to that. To our associations, our Beauty and Spa Salon Association, and then even some of our major trade magazines. Many of us have great contacts with associations and magazines that are national, that do list guidelines per states. And this would be a fantastic avenue for us to be able to say, you know, in the state of New York, as a cosmetologist, as an esthetician, here are the things that fall under your scope of practice. And then again, all of our schools, our private schools, as well as our BOCES programs as well. But I'm stressing and an urgency on my part that we worked really hard on this, and the public really needs access to this. And I'd love to be able to say, well, here's what your scope is, but people aren't looking just for me. They're really looking for it to come from an official source. And I'd love to find a way that we can somehow do that and get that information there, or have a directive as to here's where we can send them, whether it's on the website or a phone call or wherever it may be. But there's several pages of services, and they grow on a regular basis of, you know, what can we do and what can we not do, and to be able to devise a way to get that out to the public would really be fantastic.
Well, I'll just mention, Michelle, they're all great ideas. They're all different avenues we should explore. We don't have legal staff here today at today's meeting,
Right.
but we'll bring this back, all these ideas, and sort out what we can do, and we'll be able to provide that information, either at the next meeting, or we can send an email with additional information about where we should head. We wanted kind of your perspective about how to get the information out there, because, you know, we can simply put it on our website, but like, you know, are people even going to go to our website to look for that? They may not. I think maybe consumer outreach, that's an interesting avenue. You know, we can talk to our folks, you know, in consumer protection to see what they would recommend for that. So these are all good ideas. I don't know if any of the board members have any comments to add to that. And Michelle, I'd also like, do you know of any states that have this information posted on their website off the top of your head? You mentioned Trade Magazine.
Right. Any states that have their own listed, or?
Yes, that have their own information.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Utah does, Arizona does.
Arizona, okay.
I believe, yep, Virginia does as well. And one of the big things, one of the big sources people often go to are our large aesthetics associations. Now, we have the Beauty and Spa and Salon Association here in New York, but there's a lot of big ones, national ones that are out there, and they do list this information. So they would be ideal resources to be able to reach out to.
Yeah. I think an email blast is something that we can consider as well, to send this information to our licensees. We have the capability to do that. But like I said, it's important we have a conversation with our legal staff and see what's appropriate.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I just want to point out there is in our regulations there's a section entitled applicability that does list not everything you mentioned, but does identify, for example, the permanent makeup, the micropigmentation prohibition, the eyelash and eyebrow dyeing, tinting. So there is, within the regulations, there is some specific clear-cut prohibitions, not everything. But they are, you know, I mean, obviously our law booklet is a resource that very often is overlooked. You know, there is a lot of confusion out there. I can tell you from an enforcement standpoint, we cite shops on a regular basis for things such as eyebrow tinting and not, you know, and then there are things that are certainly permissible, but you have to have the right credential. Massage, there's a section in applicability about the need to have be a massage therapist in order to offer massage, et cetera. So I'm just saying within the regulations, there is an outline some items that you mentioned that are clearly, there's some guidance on.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
What about having something possibly when a licensee renews their license? Like some sort of attachment that pops up with that when they go on the website to do the renewal online of something that comes up, because that has, I've noticed just within my own salon, new people coming on questioning what they're allowed to do, particularly in the aesthetics. Some of that I've had, along with, I know when we were talking about doing eyelash lifting and we can do the keratin, finding a company that offers that option as compared to perming solution, and getting a clear definition from them that is kind of difficult, because sometimes people, I hear within the industry, stylists saying, well, they were giving a class in New York City, this company. And I go, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're legal to do it in this state. Things like that. But you see it advertised, lash tinting, all the time in salons. I see it constantly being advertised out there.
Thank you, Leanne. That's I think what prompted this even more is coming into trade show season and what we're seeing at the trade shows. And so licensees are coming back, students are coming back, they're saying, I attended this class and that class, and here's what I'm doing. I'm like, no, not in New York. You say, well, how do I know this? And so just to have that resource. So.
Yeah, you're seeing it offered at other, because it can be found in other states possibly.
Great. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for that. Next on our agenda is just, next item is new business for our next meeting date. Denise Tidings, our next meeting date for Monday, June 13th at 10:30.
That is correct. And if anyone has any conflicts, please let us know as soon as possible. If you have any items you would like us to consider for the agenda, please let us know that as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. All right, so before I adjourn, any last minute questions, statements, thoughts? Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We'll see everybody hopefully again on Monday, June 13th. And this meeting is now adjourned. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.